Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. I shall be giving a speech in public right now on aphorism number 6 of Nietzsche's Beyond Good and Evil, using the Walter Kaufman translation for anyone who wants to follow along. Sound check, sound check. 1, 2, sound check. Hello, hello. So today we're going to be starting with aphorism 6. Beyond Good and Evil, but before I get into aphorism 6, I really want to read the previous aphorisms because they're really good and it really sets itself up well and it kind of provides its own commentary. There's some people watching off to the side. I'll see if I attract a crowd. So, the will to truth, which will tempt us to many a venture, that famous truthfulness of which all philosophers so far have spoken with respect. What questions has this will to truth not laid before us? What strange, wicked, questionable questions? That is a long story even now, and yet it seems as if it had scarcely begun. Is it any wonder that we should finally become suspicious, lose patience, and turn away impatiently? That we should finally learn from this Sphinx to ask questions too? Who is it that really puts questions here before us? What in us really wants truth? Indeed, we came to a long halt at the question about the cause of this will until we finally came to a complete stop before a still more basic question. We asked about the value of this will. Suppose we want truth. Why not rather untruth and uncertainty, even ignorance? The problem of the value of truth came before us, or was it we who came before the problem? Who of us is Oedipus here? Who is the Sphinx? It is a rendezvous, it seems, of questions and question marks. And though it scarcely seems credible, it finally almost seems to us as if the problem had never been put so far, as if we were the first to see it, fix it with our eyes, and risk it. For it does involve a risk. Perhaps there is none that is greater. How could anything, aphorism 2, how could anything originate out of its opposite? For example, truth out of error, or will to truth out of will to deception, or selfless deeds out of selfishness, or the pure and sunlight gaze of the sage out of lust. Such origins are impossible. Whoever dreams of them is a fool, indeed worse. The things of the highest value must have another peculiar origin. They cannot be derived from this transitory, seductive, deceptive, and paltry world, from this turmoil of delusion and lust, rather from the lap of being, the intransitory, the hidden God, the thing in itself. There must be their basis and nowhere else. This way of judging constitutes the typical prejudgment and prejudice which give away the metaphysicians of all ages. This kind of valuation looms in the background of all their logical procedures. It is on account of this faith that they trouble themselves about knowledge, about something that is finally baptized solemnly as the truth. I see the birds like what I'm talking about. The fundamental concurrence. The fundamental faith of the metaphysicians is the faith in opposite values. It has not even occurred to the most cautious among them that one might have doubt right here at the threshold where it is surely most necessary, even if they vowed to themselves, de omnibus dubitandum, one must doubt everything. For one may doubt, first, whether there are any opposites at all, and secondly, whether these popular valuations and opposite values on which the metaphysicians put their seal are not perhaps merely foreground estimates, only provisional perspectives, perhaps even some nook, perhaps from below, frog perspectives, as it were, to borrow an expression painters use. For all the value that the truthful, the selfless may deserve, it would still be possible that a higher, a more fundamental value for life may have to be ascribed to deception, selfishness, and lust. It may even be possible that what constitutes the value of these good and revered things is precisely that they are insidiously related, tied to, and involved with these wicked, seemingly opposite things, maybe even one with them in essence, maybe. But who has the will to concern himself with such a dangerous maybe? For that, one really has to wait for the advent of a new species of philosophers, such as have somehow another converse taste and propensity from those we have known so far. Philosophers of the dangerous maybe in every sense. And in all seriousness, I see such new philosophers coming up. Aphorism 3. Having looked long enough between the philosopher's lines and fingers, I say to myself, by far the greater part of conscious thinking must still be included among the instinctive activities, and that goes even for philosophical thinking. We have to relearn here as one had to relearn about heredity and what is innate. As the act of birth deserves no consideration in the whole process and procedure of heredity, so being conscious is not in any decisive sense the opposite of what is instinctive. Most of the conscious thinking of a philosopher is secretly guided and forced into certain channels by his instincts. Behind all logic and its seeming sovereignty of movement, too, there stand valuations, or more clearly, physiological demands for the preservation of a certain type of life. For example, that the definite should be worth more than the indefinite, and mere appearance worth less than truth. Such estimates might be, in spite of their regulative importance for us, nevertheless mere foreground estimates, a certain kind of niaiserie, foolishness, which may be necessary for the preservation of just such beings as we are, supposing that not just man is the measure of things. 4. The falseness of a judgment is for us not necessarily an objection to a judgment. In this respect, our new language may sound strangest. The question is, to what extent is it life-promoting, life-preserving, species-preserving, perhaps even species-cultivating? And we are fundamentally inclined to claim that the falsest judgments, which include the synthetic judgments a priori, are the most indispensable for us, that without accepting the fictions of logic, without measuring reality against the purely invented world of the unconditional and self-identical, without a constant falsification of the world by means of number, man could not live. That renouncing false judgments would mean renouncing life and a denial of life. To recognize untruth as a condition of life, that certainly means resisting accustomed value, feeling in a dangerous way. A philosophy that risks this would by that token alone place itself beyond good and evil. 5. What provokes one to look at all philosophers half suspiciously and half mockingly is not that one discovers again and again how innocent they are, how often and how easily they make mistakes and go astray, in short, their childishness and childlikeness, but that they are not honest enough in their work. Although they all make a lot of virtuous noise when the problem of truthfulness is touched even remotely, they all pose as if they had discovered and reached their real opinions through the development of a cold, pure, divinely unconcerned dialectic, as opposed to the mystics of every rank, who are more honest and doltish and talk of inspiration, while at bottom it is an assumption, a hunch, indeed a kind of inspiration, most often a desire of the heart, that has been filtered and made abstract, that they defend with reasons they have sought after the fact. They are all advocates who resent that name, and for the most part even wily spokesmen for their prejudices which they baptize truths, and very far from having the courage of conscience that admits this, precisely this to itself, and very far from having the good taste of the courage which also lets this be known, whether to warn an enemy or a friend, or from exuberance to mock itself. That's what I'm doing here by reading this to you. Back to reading. The equally stiff and decorous tartuffery of the old Kant, as he lures us on his dialectical bypaths that lead us to his categorical imperative. really lead astray and seduce. This spectacle makes us smile as we are fastidious and find it quite amusing to watch closely the tricks of the old moralists and preachers of morals, or consider the hocus pocus of mathematical form with which Spinoza clad his philosophy, really the love of his wisdom. To render that word fairly and squarely, in mail and mask, to strike terror at the very outset into the heart of any assailant who should dare glance at that invincible maiden and Pallas Athena. How much personal timidity and vulnerability this masquerade of a sick hermit betrays. Aphorism 6. Gradually it has become clear to me what every great philosophy so far has been, namely the personal confession of its author and a kind of involuntary and unconscious memoir. Also, that moral or immoral intentions of every philosophy constituted the real germ of life from which the whole plant has grown. Indeed, if one would explain how the abstrusest metaphysical claims of a philosopher really came about, and it is always well and wise to ask first, at what morality does he aim? Accordingly, I do not believe that a drive to knowledge is the father of philosophy, but rather that another drive has, here as elsewhere, employed understanding and misunderstanding as a mere instrument. But anyone who considers the basic drives of man, to see what extent they may have been at play just here as inspiring spirits, or demons or kobolds, will find that all of them would have done philosophy at some time, and that every single one of them would like only too well to represent just itself as the ultimate purpose of existence and legitimate master of all drives. For every drive wants to be master, and it attempts to philosophize in that spirit. To be sure, among scholars who are really scientific men, things may be different, better if you like. There you may really find something like a drive for knowledge, some small independent clockwork that once well wound works vigorously without any essential participation from the other drives of the scholar. The real interests of the scholar therefore lie usually somewhere else, say in his family, or in making money, or in politics. Indeed, it is almost a matter of total indifference whether his little machine is placed at this or that spot in science, and whether the promising young worker turns himself into a good philologist, or an expert on fungi, or a chemist. It does not characterize him that he becomes this or that. In the philosopher, conversely, there is nothing whatever that is impersonal. And above all, his morality bears decided and decisive witness to who he is. That is, in what order of rank the innermost drives of his nature stand in relation to each other. And that is where we pick up for today, my ladies and gentlemen, my students of the highest order. For you who watch my videos are my students, and now I shall speak a little of myself and of my motivations for doing this. God, I love giving speeches in public, I used to do this in high school. I would go to the downtown area, and I would stand on monuments, and I would give speeches to the people. I would speak to them. I would tell them of things. And I believe the time has come for me to do this again. So, here I begin in Sanford, but later I continue in Boston, maybe even in Orlando. Maybe even my wife and children will come and videotape me. And I shall give speeches again, like those crazy preachers on the sidewalk. But I will do that in order to educate people on Nietzsche. Oh, what a life. What a life. You know, I love this. This is exuberance itself. This is exuberance in the flesh. To speak my mind in public in the Roman Forum with my obelisk behind me like a giant phallus erect at the sight of truth. For truth is a woman, as Nietzsche taunts. And by God does she give me an erection. Oh. You know, there's people who laugh in public but not in private, and I think those are the weirdest people of all. Dark was the sea, but I saw him. One great head with goggle eyes, like a diabolic cherub flying in those fallen skies. I have heard the horse deniers. I have known the wordy wars. I have seen a man by shouting seek to orphan all the stars. I have known a fool half-fashioned borrow from the heavens a tongue, so as to curse them more at leisure, though I trod him not as dung. For I have seen that finny goblin swimming in the abyss untrod, and I knew there could be laughter on the sacred face of God. In the secret face of God. Sound the trumpets, crown the sages, bring the age by reason fed. He that sitteth in the heavens, he shall laugh, the prophet said. I think I'm going to read the Gospel of Thomas when I get back. But until then, let us bask in the radiance of Nietzsche. What's he saying here? Well, just off the top, this is the first paragraph of Beyond Good and Evil I was ever introduced to by that great man, Jordan B. Peterson, who has influenced our culture beyond the ability of any but myself to admit, because of his greatness and because of our envy. It has become apparent to me until now that every great philosophy has been the conscious and unconscious confessions and memoirs of its originator. What does that mean? That means we can't philosophize. We cannot do philosophy. We simply confess who we are. Let me break this down for you. What excellent aphorisms this man doth speak. Gradually it has become clear to me what every great philosophy so far has been, namely the personal confession of its author in a kind of involuntary and unconscious memoir. Also that the immoral and moral intentions in every philosophy constituted the real germ of life from which the whole plant is grown. I'll say that. It's why I've limited my memoirs and philosophies until later in my life, despite the fact that I gave speeches on the rocks in high school. I did not speak on YouTube until I was 22 years old. Why? Why did I not speak on YouTube until I was 22 years old? Despite the fact that I've been doing this in public since I was 16. Younger than 16. There's images of me at 5 years old giving speeches in public. I would just start doing it. I love the attention. I love talking. Why? I'm going to answer that question maybe for the first time here, now. Why did I not speak on YouTube? Because I knew that my speech was manipulative. That's the reason. I'm powerful when I speak. I convince people of things. And I feared that power. I didn't know. I was uncertain. I was that wary fiend standing on the brink of hell, pondering my voyage, who is both devil and God, the disciple of Abraxas, converted to follow Christ, or who really just fell in love with Christ. I wouldn't say I was converted, I would just say I fell in love with the man. Good God, I mean, I consider the guy to be like my best friend, but I don't hang out with him very much, you know? He only shows up a few times, and I'm like, Jesus, where are you? And don't give me that I'm everywhere crap, because, like, you can show up when you want to. So why didn't I speak on YouTube? Because I knew that I was going to change the world when I did, and I didn't really know what I meant to do with that. I didn't really know what was going on. It wasn't until I became more afraid of not speaking that I started speaking. Maybe I was afraid of being ridiculed. You know, if I talk on the internet, I'm going to have to tell everyone about how I can barely ever sleep, and they're going to think I'm a crazy person. Maybe it's partially that, but I don't think it was that. I think it was really the fact that I knew I'd get everyone to believe me. And I didn't quite know if I believed myself. Maybe that's the real reason, I think. I didn't really know if I was crazy. I didn't think I was crazy, but I didn't know. Until I found other people with the exact same health condition as me. And I think when I found those other people, right after that, I think I made that I didn't sleep for 19 years YouTube video. Because I knew I was going to change the world, and I just didn't want to change the world as a lunatic. I wanted to know that I was real. And once I knew that I was real, I started speaking like this. But I played with it beforehand. I've always had this ability. I didn't cultivate this ability. I just kind of uncovered it. I've always had this. I've always done this. This is me. So, again, why is that important? Because every philosopher is simply the confession and involuntary memoir of its originator. And that's what I'm doing. I'm discipling all of you and discipling the whole world by using language, the language of God, the human body, the Word made flesh, at a higher level than anyone has ever used it before, except for maybe Jesus Christ. And so whether you want me to be or not, I am changing reality. And that's going to become more and more apparent to people. Indeed, if one would explain, and that's really like my moral and immoral convictions. Like, I just believe in life and exuberance and goodness and a parent's love for their child and a husband and wife's love for each other, in good food, family meals, and in not having that ripped away by the unconscious ignorance of Jesuits, bureaucrats, and illness, which I view as the same thing because they hearken from the same place. It's fine, though. I think that illness, Jesuits, and bureaucrats have their place, but not in me. If you're a bureaucrat, you don't get to be in me, you know? I mean, it sounds sexual because it is, and it sounds exclusive and prohibitory because it also is. That's why I carry a stick. Fuck off. Read between the lines here. I'm reading Nietzsche. I'm going to be a poetic philosopher, okay? That's the point of all this. It's why I have children. Indeed, if one would explain how the abstrusest metaphysical claims of a philosopher really came about, it always does well and wise to ask first, at what morality does all of this, does he aim? I aim at life. Look at the first video I made. I just want the stupid bullshit. Like, I don't like the stupid bullshit. I like the part of human culture where we talk about how human beings are gods. And we do wrestling matches and have like Nestor style cookouts, like from the Odyssey, where we slaughter like 12 bulls, and it's fucking awesome. And Athena shows up, and then we all praise the Most High God, and like maybe Jesus comes too, and we all trip balls on mushrooms, and it's fucking great. Like that's what I'm driving at, and then we just kill anyone brutally who tries to oppose that. Like if you want to come and be like, now you got to pay taxes to Caesar and shit, like, for legal reasons, pay your taxes to Caesar. That's all I'm going to say about that. I mean, Caesar seems pretty cool. You know, this is what I'll say. This is how we reconcile Caesar and Nestor. Caesar would really love to be at a Nestorian cookout. So if you fancy yourself Caesar, come to one of my Nestorian cookouts. I don't have them, and you're not invited, and they're secret. I've said too much already. Okay, on with my morality. If it isn't apparent who I am, look at me. Look at what I'm doing. I'm in front of a goddamn obelisk with a stick, with my shirt off, reading Nietzsche. I'm on the lion diet. My first video is about curing a fatal illness that wasn't even formally recognized when I started suffering from this. Like, I'm not going to say I'm Apollo incarnate, because I'm Devin fucking Young. I'm a different god. Get your gods right. Okay. Accordingly, I do not believe that a drive to knowledge is the father of philosophy, but rather another drive has, here as elsewhere, employed understanding and misunderstanding as a mere instrument. But anyone who considers the basic drives of man to see to what extent they may have been at play just here as inspiring spirits or demons or kobolds will find that all of them have done philosophy at some time, that every single one of them would like only too well to represent just itself as the ultimate purpose of existence and legitimate master of all the other drives. Yeah, it's not a drive to knowledge that has me here. Like, I'm not standing in front of you giving this speech to the entire world. Enjoy if you would like. Thank you. It's not a drive to knowledge that has me here giving speeches about Nietzsche to anyone who cares to listen and to YouTube at large. It is a drive to life itself, of which God is the way, the truth, and the life. He is the truth of the way to life. And that drive itself has unified me, for without that drive, I would not be here. I would simply have died from fatal insomnia. And if you follow my YouTube videos, you'll just see all this very clearly. Like, I'm not here because of knowledge. I'm here because I want to stay alive. And I feel like the culture itself has made itself willfully blind. I think fiat currency, oh my God, that would be a really cool bunch of artwork. Like fiat currency as a blindfold that people are using as they walk off a cliff. I got to talk to my dad about that. He would do, oh my God, he would like that. He does art like that. That would be a really cool one. But fiat currency is the blinding mechanism that has made us blind to that which is gnawing at the root of the Yggdrasil, which is illness caused by all of the compounds we put in our food for the sake of expediency, as well as other things in our lifestyle. We don't get enough sun, we don't walk enough, we have bullshit goals that don't motivate us. There's a child over there, so I'm gonna tone down my language a little bit because I respect families not wanting their children to swear. But basically, it is a drive to a certain kind of life, as Nietzsche said in an earlier aphorism, a physiological drive. Like, I simply enjoy being alive, and I have done a lot of psychedelics. I just have done a lot of psychedelics. I've tested my psychedelics. Always test your psychedelics, because one time I didn't test my psychedelics, and I didn't have real LSD. It was like 2CB, and that's scary, and I never want to experience that ever again, simply because it could have been something else, and then I could have fried my brain, and I didn't fry my brain. I'm very happy that I didn't fry my brain, and oh my God, like, that's, you got to test your psychedelics. But I've done a lot of psychedelics, so now for me, it's all become one sort of a thing. And part of me does think that people will call this a form of religious psychosis. but it's really organized and directed, and I can tell you about the organic chemistry involved in the industrial processes that I'm using to fund this at any point in time. So I don't think psychosis really makes people effective business leaders, family men, in really good shape. Like normally when you're experiencing psychosis, your health declines, your business gets worse, everything gets worse, but everything's getting better now. So I don't think this is psychosis. I think this is unity of the drives. I think this is, as Jung would say, as even the ancient Greeks themselves sort of knew, you need one God on top, and that has to be the God. And I have the Most High God on top of the obelisk that's behind me, the pyramid, the organizational structure. I am following the Most High God, and I have oriented all of my drives, including my very high sex drive, into a marriage, which has produced children, which I do business and provide for the children and raise them and homeschool them. And there's a whole thing that goes together in all of this. So I have unified my drive, even my drive for global conquest. I have unified into a desire to conquer the way everyone thinks about health globally so that people can become healthy, so that I can have Nestorian cookouts. That's really what all of this is for. It's for Nestorian cookouts. There's people coming and going, and they can listen and not listen. And I find this all very thrilling, but ultimately, this is what's happening for the legitimate master of all the other drives. And this is where I think that Nietzsche really speaks about what is necessary. By reading Nietzsche, we understand the necessity of religious belief in the human psyche. That is one of the benefits of reading Nietzsche. There must be a drive on the top, otherwise we become schizophrenic. Otherwise our philosophies contradict. Or we put lust on top of the hierarchy, and then we become degenerate people who end up in the Epstein files or something. To be sure, for every drive wants to be master, attempts to philosophize in that spirit. What spirit do I think I'm philosophizing in? The Holy Spirit. You have access to the Holy Spirit too if you're a Christian. That's what Christians believe, is that we have access to the Holy Spirit. Or they say they believe that, at least. On with Nietzsche. To be sure, among scholars who are really scientific men, things may be different, better if you like. There you may really find something like a drive for knowledge, some small independent clockwork that, once well wound, works on vigorously without any essential participation from all the other drives of the scholar. Yes, that I have that as well. I will read the encyclopedia. I would read a book about toilet paper. I just like to read. So I have that drive, but I've integrated that drive into a higher system, and I've made that drive my servant. The real interests of the scholar therefore lie usually somewhere else, say in his family or in making money or in politics. Indeed, it is almost a matter of total indifference whether his little machine is placed at this or that spot in science, and whether the promising young worker turns himself to a good philologist or an expert on fungi or a chemist. It does not characterize him that he becomes this or that. So yeah, I would agree. Originally my interests were in theoretical physics, and then necessity and my own interests brought me to exactly here right now. And I see no contradiction in that because I get to read books and talk about them. In The Philosopher, conversely, there is nothing whatever that is impersonal. And above all, his morality bears decided and decisive witness to who he is. That is, in what order of rank the innermost drives of his nature stand in relation to each other. This is my autobiography, my confessions, my memoir. In the philosopher, conversely, there is nothing whatever that is impersonal, and above all, his morality bears decided and decisive witness to who he is. That is, in what order of rank the innermost drives of his nature stand in relation to each other. That's all I have to say about that.